Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining us today. This is our this is our memorial episode for Stanley for the whole dying thing. But we wanted to talk sort of about his history, how he became such an iconic figure, what he really did and accomplished in the world of Marvel. Uh, Sort of what he's known for and what he really did with the other artists and writers like primarily Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, the people he created most of his characters with that he's really known for. More or less, that's what we do here, but we kind of get into everything. I mean, after about an hour, there's only so much you can really talk about for the one guy, unless we really went in depth, which we didn't. It's not like we did a ton of research. I mean, that's just not our MO. What, look something up, know about it before you start talking about it? You've come to the wrong place if that's what you're looking for. So, once again, you guys, thanks again for joining us. I hope you enjoy the show as much as I enjoyed making it.
Turns all your bad feelings into good feelings. It's a nightmare.
An Uzi? I'm not from South Central Los fucking Angeles. I didn't come here to shoot 20 black 10-year-olds in a fucking drive-by. I want a normal gun for a normal person.
Whatever you're reaching for better be a sandwich, because you're gonna have to eat it.
You thought he was white before? You should see that sucking now.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure
Let's
to
get it
understand.
cracking. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our memorial episode for the great Stan Lee.
Yes.
Representing here.
Yeah. You know what? I should have worn a Marvel shirt. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing a sweater that says "shit happens."
I mean, that in its own way. I thought that might have been Howard the Duck, because I know you're a big Marvel fan.
Oh, that's a good point. I never even thought about that. Maybe that was my reaction when Stan Lee died. I was like, nope, shit happens.
Shit happens. Sometimes shit happens. So yeah, if you guys haven't heard, which you probably have, Stan Lee. I mean, if you've gone on Instagram or Facebook or fucking the internet or anything, you've definitely heard that Stan Lee died of pneumonia. He passed away yesterday, or was it the day before?
I think it was yesterday.
Yeah. He was 95 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Motherfucker.
It's pretty crazy when you think about, because, let's be honest here. I wasn't surprised at all that he died. I mean, when somebody gets to be in their 90s, it's kind of like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I mean, yeah, what do you...
I
wasn't surprised.
Here's a good way of looking at it, my perspective. Every day that went by that he didn't die, I was more surprised that he had not died yet.
Well,
like it's kind of crazy that, I mean, this guy's got some good genes. He lasted a long time.
Yeah, much respect to the genes of the Lieberman family. That's his real name, right?
Yeah. He did the typical 19 early 9 the thing. Jewish dudes always change their name because they're too Jewish sounding.
I don't want to sound so Jewish in my publication. Well, yeah, Stan Lee was his pen name or whatever you call it, pseudonym.
Was Stan Lee the most famous Lee after Bruce Lee?
Wait, what?
I'm asking a question. Who's the more famous Lee?
Oh, who's the more famous Lee?
Bruce Lee. Because that's the two, right? There's nobody more famous than those two.
There aren't any Lees that go to that level. I mean, we got, and most of them are martial arts stars too. I mean, Jet Li.
There's people with Lee, like Rachel Lee Cook.
Yeah.
People with
Lee.
Lee.
Isn't she Lay Cook, or it's like
you might
that way? Yeah, it's Rachel
right.
Lay Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so
really, I think the focal point, just because this is what's going on everywhere, is the big Stan Lee thing. I was tripping about, like, when I started looking up what's going on with it, how it all went down. I was tripping about the whole Twitter thing with Army Hammer. That was the
Yeah,
funniest thing to me. Like, what an asshole! What's his problem?
yeah, it was really I just don't even know why he would care that much to
Right.
comment on it. It was really odd.
Well, I thought it was just really, really conceited. Like, he had this
Yeah.
really, like, superior, like, elitist sort of way of being like, um, we're memorializing him the wrong way. You people who are grown adults who do things however you choose to are not remembering this guy the correct way.
Yeah,
Like,
essentially, for those of you guys who don't know, Army Hammer basically criticized people who were, or other celebrities or other people in general who were memorializing Stan Lee by posting photos that they had taken with him. So he,
yeah, specifically they'd taken selfies with him, mostly on,
yeah,
like, movie sets and
and,
stuff, and then they
and he,
write, like, a little paragraph about what a great
right.
guy he was and how important he was to them.
And in his mind, I guess he thought that was shitty because it was self-centered that they would be, so showing a picture of themselves, which
Hmm.
is like, I don't know. I just don't see it like that.
Yeah, no, I don't need. I
Pretty
think,
common thing to do when somebody dies. You have like think of it like
well,
this, right? Even if you just take the celebrity out of it,
sure.
if I was to die tomorrow, you would probably share photos of us together. That would only
Right.
make sense, right?
Because it's sort
Everybody
of
does that. It's kind
it
of
because it more connects you to that individual, makes you show, like, how this person had a specific impact on my life,
right.
and I'm
Yeah.
here remembering them. And that's more or less what he had a problem with, is like, you're making it about you. It's not about them. And it's like, well, remembering someone is about you, asshole. It's about
Yeah.
your relationship to that person, what they meant to you. So yeah, it is fucking about you.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Very,
mean that it's not about
very,
them too.
very odd response from Army
Yeah.
Hammer. You know what I was really surprised by was the amount of because on like Instagram and Facebook and just everywhere else, they have all these people posting, how much they admired Stan Lee.
Yeah.
I was really, I guess you just kind of forget, you kind of forget just how much of just popular culture in general, like Marvel Comics, has influenced. And it's easy now to see it because it's like the biggest thing in the world. But I guess you just forget how far it's came. I was just talking with my nephew about this yesterday, and I was telling him, I was like, dude, you don't even understand. When I was a kid, Marvel movies like kind of sucked. Like
We had
there
Ghost
was
Rider. That was about it.
there was a couple of good ones. You had
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Daredevil.
Spider-Man, well, X-Men, yeah, Daredevil. X-Men was the first good
Yeah.
Marvel movie.
But it
And
wasn't
then
even,
you
yeah,
had,
that was still pre Marvel Studios and everything. And it was
yeah,
it was
Well,
it
Iron
was
Man.
Fox. That was like that
Yeah,
was
that's
that,
fine.
that was really big for a Marvel movie to be released by Fox.
I felt like, X-Men was actually a really big, that was just a big step for superhero movies in general. Because
Hmm.
prior to X-Men, you didn't really have a lot of like superhero movies that even took themselves seriously at all. Even
No.
though like Batman and Superman were considered good movies and were, at least the first installments were critically
Well,
acclaimed.
but they still had a like a silliness to them.
Yeah,
They had that, like, the whole Tim Burton Batman thing is like, I love those movies. In some
yeah,
ways I like them more than, like, the Christopher Nolan movies.
right.
But they weren't done in, like, a serious, respectable way. They were
No,
comical, and, like, it was a puppet show
it
in
was.
in
Yeah,
effect.
it was like a live action play almost.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Actually, they the way they were filmed and set up, it was like on a set, like
it
a
looked like a
stage. It
stage.
looked like a, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so X-Men was the first, well, and I guess this wouldn't be correct though. X-Men was the first real big hit, but actually before that would have to be Blade. People always forget
Yeah,
about Blade. It
Blade
came
was
out before
Marvel.
X,
Yeah.
and it was R-rated.
Yeah.
It was
Oh
like
yeah.
people forget about Blade. But X-Men was like the first one where you took like the mainstream heroes and turned
Some
it, you know what I
motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill.
mean? Some other than my favorite quote of all time. Wesley Snipe improvised. For
Yeah.
those of you guys that don't know, I think we might have talked about this before.
I'm pretty
Uh,
sure we have, yeah.
if you guys don't remember, though, look up Patton Oswalt. the comedian Patton Oswalt talking about his experiences filming Blade with Wesley Snipes, and the stories are just fucking hilarious.
I haven't even watched that yet. Actually,
You have to see it.
I
He
should have
tells
before we.
some hilarious stories. He's just as outlandish as you'd expect.
All I've ever heard about Wesley Snipes is that he's impossible to work with. If he shows up to the set, he'll be completely like blacked out on cocaine. He shows up when he wants to. He'll only say lines once. If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's like.
Can you believe he almost fought Joe Rogan?
No,
Did you know that?
no, I didn't know that, but that's great.
Wait, do you know this story?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, this is crazy. Him and Joe Rogan almost had a sanctioned fight. Joe Rogan was actually
really?
training for it. Yeah, this was back in it was right around the time Wesley Snipes was having tax issues. Well,
It was like during the time that Joe Rogan was competing, right?
No, this was when Rogan was already like hosting Fear Factor.
Oh, okay.
And commentating for the UFC. So he's 50 now. So I'm thinking Rogan probably would have been in his late 30s at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, no, they were gonna do like a full blown like actual sanctioned fight. And then they were gonna. I can't remember. I think Wesley Snipes ended up backing out. That's why it didn't go through. Because he wasn't getting paid enough or something. But can you imagine how badly he would have just gotten raped? He would have been so embarrassed.
That would have been amazing. I would have loved it.
It would have been awesome. Yeah.
I know we've talked about this on the podcast before, so I don't really want to go too much into detail. But my coach, his sensei, like the guy who he used to work with him doing bouncing, and he had to like bitch slap Wesley Snipes around one time.
I don't remember this. I remember you talking about how he used to bounce.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember specifically him having to bitch slap Wesley Snipes.
Not my coach, his old coach.
His old coach. Really? Why?
I can't remember the exact detail. I just remember like Wesley Snipes was like basically just acting rowdy, being all fucked up, and he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't listen to the bouncers. Be like, hey, I think it was like a leave her alone situation or something like that. And then he like just grabbed him by the lapels and just bitch slapped the shit out of him. And he just looked at him like deer in the headlights, like, oh shit.
That's crazy.
He's like, I'm Blade. Nobody does that to me.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes isn't used to that kind of treatment. Yeah. Wesley Snipes to me always kind of reminded me of like he's like the black Bruce Willis, because I've always heard Bruce Willis is really hard to work with too.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I've never heard that, but I believe it. Like,
well, I'm in contact with a lot of
Hollywood executives,
celebrities who let me. No, that's like a thing, dude. Bruce Willis is like a dick, is what I heard.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Makes me like him more.
He looks like a human penis too.
He kind of does.
He's a penis.
Like at least a half erect penis, just like now that he's
man.
old, it's like kind of hanging off to the side a little bit, but
yeah, he does.
Oh man, that's gruesome.
So well, I guess what else is there to say about Stan Lee? I mean, what more can you say?
Oh man, what
run through some of his memorable. Actually, my most memorable Stan Lee cameo doesn't even come in the form of a Marvel movie. And a lot of people forget Stan Lee's first cameo. It might not have been his first, but one of his first was in Kevin Smith's Mallrats.
Right. I was thinking about that today, actually. His whole like thing where he talks about like or where fucking what's his name? Jason London, whatever. His name is, set him up to like convince his friend Brody to go after his girlfriend.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite Stan Lee cameo, because that was the one where they actually gave him quite a bit of dialogue in that one.
He was in it.
Like it was like a full, and that was before the Stan Lee cameo was a thing.
Right.
That was that's.
Well, was that his actual first cameo? Do you know if that was?
I don't know if it was his first actual cameo. I'm sure he had other ones prior to that, but that always felt.
Well, I mean, maybe he did, but I mean, Stan Lee was never. He wasn't a public face before that. Like he was a representative of Marvel, But
Stan Lee was essentially the mascot of Marvel Comics.
right, I
And
was.
yeah.
That's actually a really interesting. There's something to branch off with about that I was reading about earlier with a lot of the assumptions about his relationship with Jack Kirby and Steve
Steve
Ditko.
Ditko. Yeah.
How like a lot of people go like, oh, they didn't get along because they left Marvel and he stayed.
Yeah.
But he was, according to his statements, like they had good relationships, but Stan Lee wasn't like the owner of Marvel. He wasn't the founder of Marvel. He was an employee just like them. He didn't have power to give them like
Yeah,
extra benefits.
yeah, and well, essentially, what people were mad at a lot of Stan Lee kind of did develop a not so great reputation within like the hardcore comic book
Because
community.
he wasn't responsible for like the amount of writing that Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby had, or the actual artistry and everything.
No, but not just that. The thing that really irked people is back in I think it was the 80s, they tried to put together a union for comic book writers and artists. And Stan Lee was one of the few who actually sided with the Marvel company. And essentially, the artists and the writers were just trying to get paid more, and they tried to create a union. And that's kind of why. That's when you had in the early '90s, you had Image Comics, where basically all of the biggest artists from DC and Marvel came together to form their own company. And that
Well,
was
Image was cool. That was Spawn, right?
Image was Spawn. So
Yeah.
basically, what you had with Image, it was Rob Liefeld, who created co-creator of Deadpool. You had Jim Lee. You had Todd McFarlane, who did Spawn.
Todd McFarlane has one of my favorite just art styles, like the way he draws.
Yeah, I do. I like Todd McFarlane a lot.
It's kind of to me it's that generation too of comics where it's not too
perfect.
New. It's not that like super old where I'm not that into it because I can't connect to it, and it's not that super new one where it looks like it's 3D. It looks like a cartoon or something.
Yeah, the art is like too glossy now. In my opinion.
Whenever I look at a new comic, that's what's really hard for me is getting into that. But
Todd McFarlane kind of had that. It was kind of a very raw style, but also very detailed. And he was responsible. Really, Todd McFarlane created like most of the most popular characters of the '90s.
Wasn't Wasn't he like involved with the Venom design?
He created it.
He created Venom. Yeah, I knew he had something to do with Venom.
I'm pretty positive he created Venom. There was some kind of weird thing going on with something happened though. I might be misquoting this because he invented the black suit Spider-Man, and then from that Venom is what branched off.
Well, what happened with the black suit Spider-Man was there was a
contest.
Like there was like a contest or a convention or something, and some guy like made a black Spider-Man, and he called it like Stealth Spider-Man.
Yes.
And I think it was Stan Lee, whoever it was, like the people from Marvel that actually bought it from him, they gave him like $200 for it. Yeah. You can actually see the letter online.
That's so sad.
Yeah. And they took it and they threw away his whole Stealth Spider-Man thing and just made Venom. They were like, we like this.
Well, no, but I think they put the suit was on Spider-Man first. So they did use it on him first.
And then they developed it from there.
But that is fucking, how sad though, man. That poor dude.
The guy who invented Venom.
It's funny because I was just talking with my nephew about this yesterday, and he was asking me, he was like, what is your favorite Spider-Man costume of all time? I was like, there's a lot to choose from, but if pressed and I was forced to, it has to be the solid black classic Spider-Man costume. I think that's the best one. Mm-hmm. And it's so sad that like whoever this dude was that got paid $200, who's responsible for probably like one of the top 5 most iconic superhero looks of all time.
He is, but also it's not like he was going to create Venom. It wasn't like it was going to get developed.
But I just feel like
still, like $200
a little more than that. He should at least like get a house out of the deal or something.
Oh man, no, I mean he should have gone back, and I mean like with any amount of ethics would have been like, all right, we created a fucking world of shit from this. money and
That's kind of what I
notoriety and
mean.
everything.
Yeah,
Like we
when
could
you think
probably
about
get buy this guy a car or something.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. When you think about the amount of things that spawned from that, it's like it's insanity, you
No
know.
pun intended.
Yeah,
Spawn.
no pun intended. Um, but yeah, Todd McFarlane had a really cool style, and so when those guys started Image, that was their way of. It was like kind of like a big fuck you to DC and Marvel, the two big. And DC and Marvel were like hemorrhaging money in the early '90s. They were Marvel filed for bankruptcy, I think.
Right.
Um,
Well, that's why
so-
they weren't able to keep like a lot of their rights, their comics, their whole fucking like
No.
selling X-Men to Fox and all that shit.
no, yeah, the whole
Fantastic Four.
that's exactly what happened. The whole industry hemorrhaged because you had that it was in that
Oh,
time
and
period.
DC selling basically everything that they have to Warner Brothers.
Oh yeah,
The saddest thing that ever
kind of
happened.
like what Marvel did with Disney.
Yeah.
And well, and basically what you had was you had these two companies who that was around the 80s was the time when all of these comic books that from the golden age were starting to like skyrocket in value and they were worth crazy amounts of money. But what people don't realize is the reason why those comics were worth so much money is because they were rare. And part of the reason why they were rare is because when back in the 1950s or whenever it was when there was a doctor named Dr. Frederick Wortham who published a report demonizing comic books.
Right. I was reading something about this earlier too.
Yes. So people would have, public burnings where they would have their kids bring their comics and they would burn all these comics. So that's essentially that's part of the reason that made Golden Age comics so rare is because a lot of them were destroyed and they were printed on cheap paper anyway. So even the ones that were kept in decent conditions, those weren't even in that great a condition.
We'll just be falling apart with age.
Yeah, and so all these guys in the 80s started thinking every time they would produce, both companies, Marvel and DC, would produce all these ridiculous amounts of like variant covers, and people started buying them up.
You know what trips me out when I look at those old like Golden Age comics too is there was no restriction on the amount of style that you could put under the characters. I mean, I know that culturally things were different, artwork was different, style was different, and naturally things are going to evolve as time goes on. So like you see the more streamlined versions of characters that we have today, but it is weird that you go back and look and straight up just the overall design of the characters looks cheaper and older. Like the way Iron Man was drawn, he looked like a guy in a fucking Campbell's soup can with a face. And like fucking
superhero comics, especially during that time period, they had notoriously shitty art.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and that's why that as I was mentioning earlier, it's harder to get into that nowadays when you go back and look because it
is. Well, and they had a weird period because actually prior to that book coming out and that kind of putting that basically when that guy wrote that book, it put an end to horror comics. Like you didn't have horror comics anymore.
Yeah, we talked about that with the whole EC Comics.
But when they did EC Comics, they actually had really good artists. If you go back and look at that, it's a weird thing that happened because if you look at the artwork for EC Comics, they had a great quality artwork. Like really beautiful stuff.
I think that's more important with horror comics though, because like I think that was more of a natural thing for horror comics to have that because they have to look striking.
Scary. And a lot of the scenarios in horror comics require more detail and more, but those artists, those guys were like real artists at the time who did that as like a full-time job. And then by the guys who started Superman, Joe Siegel and Schuster, those guys had like no background in art. They could barely draw. So if you look at those first
fucking shoe salesmen,
if you look at those first Batman and Superman comics, they look like shit. They look horrible. And then even a lot of the really good artists, like even Steve Ditko, when he first started drawing comics, his art style was really kind of plain and just not. And then same thing with Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby ended up morphing into like this crazy cosmic psychedelic,
He
gnarly style along the way.
I love that too. Like he was more the one who did more like the space shit. Like
Yeah, Jack Kirby is basically responsible for like the entire space side of Marvel, the
uh
cosmic side.
well, I know like in the representations of like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in the comics, like Stan Lee's the one above all character. And Jack Kirby was like this cosmic bartender guy. I can't remember like what his
I
name
don't remember that either. So I
was. He
think
was
Stan Lee was supposed to be like the Watcher or something, right? Or like
Stan Lee was he was called the one above all. He was basically God. He was like Jesus Christ or something. Like he was
okay.
always portrayed with like a bright light behind him. He only appears very like rarely. And it would be like he could do anything. He was supposed to be like the most powerful character in the Marvel universe, but he's like too like heavenly to like interfere with things. So he would just like show up and give people advice. Like there's one comic where Peter Parker meets the one above all. I think like is like right after somebody died, because there's always somebody dying in Peter Parker's life.
Do you remember there was actually do you remember like the finale of the Spider-Man cartoon where he meets Stan Lee?
No, vaguely.
So,
I know I've seen it.
For the finale of the Spider-Man animated series, I remember tripping out on this as a kid. He meets Stan Lee, and Stan Lee like comes to him and he's like, "You're like my creation. I created you." And he's
so
like,
weird.
it's fucking out there, dude.
It's
You
all
have
super
to
cheesy like that, or what?
It's so even as a kid, I was like, "What the fuck is this?
What are
This
they
is
fucking trying to pull here?
What is going on?"
Yeah.
Like it was super spacey for me as a kid. And I've gone back and watched it. It's very, very strange. You have to see it. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a strange way to end the series.
I definitely need to go back and check that out. I was watching Batman Beyond the other day just for like a little throwback. That was really great.
You know what? I never really, I watched like a couple episodes of it, and I remember actually really liking it, but for whatever reason, I never consistently like sat down and watched it start to finish.
I was watching it. It just struck me. I was like, this is kind of like almost like a shot at Nightwing or something. Like they didn't want to go all the way to make like a Nightwing cartoon.
That's kind of what I remember when it came out. That's exactly what I thought.
It even looks like Nightwing's costume a little bit, aside from having the Batman mask and the fucking bat ears.
It's pretty similar.
He has that little like stripe?
Yeah, the red.
It's red instead of blue. They definitely took some cues from the idea of Nightwing.
They had Nightwing on the original Batman animated series eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did.
I never understand why they just didn't give him his own series.
Nightwing was dope. Actually, there's a really good independent series called Nightwing.
I've seen some of it on YouTube.
It's only like I think it's like 10-minute episodes. There's like 5 of them, and it's good. Like he fights Deathstroke.
Mm-hmm.
Deathstroke ends up being the main villain. It's pretty good. I was very impressed with it for such a low budget thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I keep forgetting that people are listening to this, and like I'm like fucking in my living room, surrounded by pugs, with a fire going, and then I have responses like "mm-hmm," and I'm like, oh wait, you probably shouldn't respond with "mm-hmm" while you're filming a podcast.
I would call that'd be irresponsible podcasting. Did you hear about Stan Lee's final creation that he was working on with his daughter?
No.
Right, like up to the day he passed away.
No, what was it?
Get ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
Dirt Man.
Dirt Man.
Yeah.
We already have a Dirt Man. Isn't that Sandman?
No, Sandman. Sandman's Sandman. All right.
Clayface is Mudman.
Clayface is totally different. That's DC. This is probably going to be like the Marvel rebuttal to Clayface. We'll call it that. It's
So,
Dirt Man.
you got any details on Dirt Man? What
No,
his powers entail?
no details were released. His daughter was like crying too much while she was telling the press
One
about it.
can only imagine what Dirt Man is capable of.
What is the overall point of Dirt Man in general? Like,
I have a few ideas that come to mind. He could be a guy who just could be a really dirty
I
homeless
was
man.
gonna say he's just a
Just never
filthy
get a shower.
he's a filthy guy. A dirt man. Oh man.
Well, Stanley was never short on I. That's kind of one of the funny things about him too, is when they tell stories about like the creation of a lot of his most famous characters. What you start to realize the deeper you dig is that a lot of these characters weren't necessarily Stanley's characters. They were
Right.
kind of. He would like basically Stanley. He was like, you ever see that episode of South Park where they have a manatees in a it's like manatees in a swimming pool, and then they
Yeah,
have,
it was how Family Guy comes up with their jokes.
exactly. That's Stanley with superheroes. He's just shooting ideas in a fucking bucket until
Well,
somebody more talented comes along and makes it something.
you saw the Key and Peele thing where they had Stan Lee like
Yes,
he's all
yeah.
really old. It's like
Yeah,
what was the guy who's like he's
so
all,
funny
"Key
though.
man. He always remembers where he left his keys."
It's so funny though because it's 100% true.
Yeah.
Like if you actually were to go through, and Stan Lee did a lot of this in like the 90s and the 2000s, where before Marvel really started to make a lot of money from Marvel Studios, is he was churning out like he would come up with some really fucking awful superhero ideas. They were always really corny and really dated.
I didn't really look into it to see those, but that's awesome.
Yeah, he was through and through. He was and it's funny too because if you look at a lot of the characters he came up with, like one of my favorites is Daredevil, and I love the Netflix Daredevil series that they have
Well,
going.
he co-founded Daredevil.
Yeah, he co-founded it.
Come
But he
up
would
with
always
Daredevil
say,
on his own.
I'm fairly certain that Stan Lee would always say that Daredevil was like his proudest creation
Mhm.
because he was like he essentially took like a handicapped character and made him into a hero.
Right.
But that Daredevil could have very easily been could have been a dirt man, you know? Like,
Right.
if you didn't have a talent.
You could have easily been that could have been a dirt man.
Daredevil could have been Dirt Man. And if you
Could
look
have
at the
been
original
Daredevil.
Daredevil comics, when he had
If there wasn't already a Dirt Devil for
yeah, exactly,
cleaning
could
your
have been
floors,
Daredevil.
then that's what it would have been.
If you look at the original Daredevil comics, he looked fucking awful. They had a bright yellow costume on him. He had the worst villains. He had a villain named Stilt Man, who just had big ass stilts. And he
I'm
would
trying
just
to
like
remember.
trample through the city.
Esoteric, the rapper, has one of his lines. He says yellow suit, I'm like Daredevil. Check the air level. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the original. And then
Yeah.
really the person who came in and just fucking took Daredevil and made him a cool character was Frank Miller.
Was that okay? Frank Miller's got some
He's done
great
that with
shit.
a lot of
yeah.
He's fucking crazy now though. Have you seen him lately?
No.
He's just like what I had heard is that he's like a pretty crazy alcoholic, and he just comes like I don't know. I think he's just fried his brain. He doesn't really come up.
I think that's what comic book writers, just do, right? You just become alcoholics. I know that's a
Maybe in,
writer.
like the 1960s. I don't know if they do that now. Do they?
I don't know, man. I don't know what comic book writers do, to be honest, but it seems like something comic book writers would do, sitting there meticulously drawing away.
Well, that's what they used to say about what I had heard. I watched this documentary. I can't remember the name of it. It was a documentary on YouTube. So if you guys are interested, look it up. But it was a Jack Kirby documentary. And they would talk about how he would just spend, like, he had the most unhealthy lifestyle. And they basically just said he would sit all
Cocaine,
day.
hookers.
No, not like that. He would just sit all day, every day in his basement drawing. Guy never got any sunlight. And he does, I mean, if you go back and look at all of Jack Kirby's work, he has like an insane amount of drawing that he did.
Right.
Like just crazy amounts of work. So I don't know. I think that's what a lot of them do is they just kind of.
They just sit there. They kind of do a South Park World of Warcraft episode thing.
Basically, yeah.
They just melt
It
away in the
sounds
basement.
like.
Have mom
Yep.
deliver him hot pockets.
Yep. Yep. No time for anything else.
No, of course not.
So what else are we going to talk about?
Um, there's one more interesting fact that I came across that's relating to Stan Lee.
Yeah.
I thought was really funny and worth sharing. Apparently, he had a good relationship with Gene Simmons, Kiss,
That really, when I hear
and
that makes a lot of sense.
but more specifically beyond that, he had Gene Simmons cut himself and bleed into a vat of ink so that he could say that a series of comics were actually
It had Kiss
written
blood
in
in
his
them.
blood.
I remember this. I remember this because I remember when I used to collect Wizard magazine, they had like a compilation list of some of the wackiest like things comics had ever done, and that was one of the top ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think they actually, according to Gene Simmons, he said they actually did it. Like they
That's what he
actually
said.
had,
That's what it said on the
yeah,
thing. Is like
they
they,
actually took blood from the members of Kiss and put it into the ink.
yeah.
How gross is that, though? You'd just be giving kids all kinds of venereal.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine all the VD in those comics?
Because
It's tremendous.
Kiss in their heyday were just plowing through
Oh,
groupies like nobody's business.
that was why they became Kiss, was for the groupies.
What a weird band, huh? Kiss. When you look back on it,
Oh yeah.
like it's just a bunch of clowns. Did you ever see the Kiss movie?
No, I would never have watched the Kiss.
It's fucking. I didn't. I can't say that I watched it. I've
It's
watched.
like asking
parts
me
of
if I
it.
watched Yellow Submarine. That's right on the same vein.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I never had any interest in watching Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. No, that's something I I don't know why things like that just didn't interest me. I'm sure now if I was on a lot of drugs, I would watch that.
Yeah, yeah. They never really did it for me either. Like, there was animations that I like.
I always loved animated shit. I always loved like
Yeah,
weird
but just
stuff
those.
like that. But for some
Those
reason, that was not interesting to me.
were you into
Um,
heavy metal? The
the
animated
movie?
film? Yeah.
Yeah, I liked heavy metal the movie. Didn't like heavy metal the music. That never got to me.
In case you guys don't know, Keith is not a heavy metal fan.
No, heavy metal never. I didn't have any attachment to it.
Yeah, no, I loved heavy metal, the movie. That movie is hilarious. That's one of my favorite animated movies.
It's been too long since I've seen it, so I don't really remember what happens in it. But I remember this little like floating ball terrorizing this naked woman on like a desolate planet.
That's one of the stories. Yeah, they have like
No, that was like the
that's the main story.
that was like the main
that
story.
everything stems from. Yeah.
And that was what he was terrorizing her with, was like
Yeah.
telling her stories. He's like, now we're gonna hear something horrible.
Yeah. And some of them
So-
weren't even that horrible. Like some of them were just they were my favorite story of all of them. There was one where they have it's like the guy is like a I don't know, I really liked all of them, but there's one where there's like a space captain who's on trial
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a robot snorting coke and I don't know, it was just really out there.
I can't. Yeah, for the life of me, I can't remember. There was a couple heavy metal movies too, right? There was like a second or possibly third one.
They ended up coming out with I think two more after that. I remember they came out with Heavy Metal 2000, which came out in
That's right. I remember Heavy Metal 2000.
the year 2000. Heavy Metal 2000 was awful. I really liked it at the time as my 10-year-old self, but upon further review at a later age, I realized it was just terrible.
Right. Sorry, I'm trying to look this thing up right now.
What are you trying to look up?
I'm looking up who the Jack Kirby character was. It's in my brain right now, and it's driving.
Yeah,
me
that flew over my head. I don't even remember that.
I know that flew over your head because you said you didn't even know, but
Yeah.
now my computer's like freezing up. Not this computer. This one. Living Tribunal is not who that is. We all know who the living tribunal is. Come on.
I'm gonna need to plug my computer in actually to make sure that I don't die here.
You better do that, bro.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, this it looks like this list here has it has the one above all, but then it has the Beyonder as the next person underneath. Hey, watch out for the salt lamp, okay? Anyway, looks like we've lost Matt for a while here. That was always something that was really fun to me, was just looking up lists of like who's the strongest characters in the Marvel universe. I mean, it's a fake thing. It's not like they're real characters. There's no actual measurable way to say who's stronger than who and in what sense either. Like, it's not like just physical strength is necessarily a factor. They all have different characteristics that make them significant. Rarely is actual just lifting strength even relevant when it comes to that.
What are we talking about?
I'm talking about the idea of looking up who the strongest characters in like Marvel universe or like DC universe and stuff is.
Yeah, it doesn't even really matter when you think about it, because
Right,
like depending on the scenario, you know,
they're all relevant in different ways.
yeah,
Like,
that's kind of the fun. That's what I always liked about the X-Men is like
Mhm.
they always had very, you know, they just always had very unique powers, so they would come in handy in really random scenarios.
Mhm. But yeah, that I don't know why that made me think of this thought I was having the other day about about a comparison between Marvel and DC. How Marvel seems to have more like outlandish, like not based in reality characters. You know, like DC has a lot more characters that are just like vigilante, like we don't have powers, we're just like skill based, wearing masks and stuff. But they're the ones who have the fake cities like Gotham and Metropolis. And
Here's what's weird about DC though, is that they do have a lot of those vigilante characters with no powers, but then they have them compete with like
right,
crazy
powered, like
godlike powered characters.
right.
Marvel
Which-
has a little more in between as far as like you know they'll have Marvel has more of a spectrum, I think, as far as
Mhm.
powers go. So they'll have somebody like a Captain America who's slightly superpowered, or
Right.
like a Daredevil who's slightly superpowered, and then you have like the next tier, which would be like a Spider-Man, and then the next tier, which would
Right.
be like Thor. You
Right.
know, they have a very clear kind of power structure, whereas DC, it's like you have like Martian Manhunter, or Aquaman, or Superman, or Wonder Woman, who are all just like gods. But
Yeah.
then you have Batman, who has no powers.
Except Aquaman, like if he's on land for like 5 minutes, he dies. The original.
I don't care what anybody says. Aquaman is so lame. Aquaman will never be tight.
Hey, bro.
I just want to tell
He's better than the Submariner, bro.
the Submariner is way tighter. Okay, I'll fucking argue this till the day I die. Submariner was one of my early favorite characters.
Really? The Submariner?
Submariner, if you actually
I think
go
it's
back,
Submariner, right? I think it's
Submariner, yeah,
yeah.
Namor.
Yeah, all right. Let's
You
get
go
that. Let's
back-
get that right since he's your favorite.
I didn't like him when I was a little kid, but then when I got a little older, when I was like 12, 13, and I started reading about like
When you
the
were a
history
grown
of
man,
Marvel
until you
comics.
were 13.
When I was a grown man, when I started reading about the history of Marvel comic books, and I started realizing like what an integral part the Submariner was of that, and like the original Human Torch, who actually wasn't even a part of the Fantastic Four. He was a
Not the
cyborg.
Chris Evans Human Torch.
No. And when I started really doing my research, and then you actually like get into the mythology of the Submariner, and like it's like a really cool unexplored part of the Marvel universe that they haven't, and they can't, because I think Fox owns them. So maybe after that deal goes through and Marvel owns Fox, or Disney owns Fox,
They'll bring the Submariner back.
they'll bring the Submariner back. Who would you get to play the Submariner? Now, I already have a choice. If he was younger and they got him in his prime, Steven Seagal. That's
Definitely. 100%. He looks exactly like him.
Yeah, no question.
That voice too. Can you imagine like the Submariner fucking
Steven Seagal is a
Go
Submariner.
voice.
That'd be perfect.
I don't really know any Submariner lines. I never got into it like that. I was about to like drop something, but I just couldn't do it.
All right, so here's the thing. I never honestly, I probably can count on one hand the amount of Submariner comics I read. but I'm talking about more, like I said, when I would just read about the character in
Right.
some of my like Marvel
That-
encyclopedias and stuff. Like I like that part of it.
That's honestly that's where I get most of my most of my superhero comic book information comes from me, like reading about the characters and their backgrounds and what they've done in the canonical history of the storylines.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah, there's just so many comic books, and most of the time you read a comic book, an individual comic book, and it's like, all right, nothing took place in that comic.
No, like, and yeah, they have a lot of filler. And when I was a teenager, I had a few series that I would follow, but for the most part, I just read graphic novels when they were already collected.
I'm looking at
one singular story.
I'm looking at a picture of Frank Miller here, and yeah, he looks like he's somehow turned into Sean Penn, but like at 90 years old.
Yeah, he doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's not good.
I mean, he took a sharp turn because, like, if you just look at Frank Miller back in like 05 when they released Sin City, he looked fine. He looked normal. He was lucid in his conversations, but you see him now, he just, man, he really went downhill in the last
right
for many years.
Well, that's good to know. All right.
Powerful Frank Miller.
Powerful Frank Miller. Yeah. I gotta get out of this thing. I'm just distracting myself looking at it. I'm going down just like a rabbit hole of looking like, like
you don't tell these fucking fans who Jack Kirby's Marvel Comics character is.
It's not gonna happen.
They're not gonna be able to sleep at night.
I can't find it anymore. I used to look through like these lists, and he was always the second one after One Above All. Which here, I'm just gonna show you One Above
Everybody's gonna unsubscribe to this podcast.
I've ruined everybody's beliefs here. Here's a absolutely creepy look at the One Above All, Stan Lee's representation in Marvel Comics as a comic book character.
Kind of looks like a mix between like Xavier and the Phoenix,
and like a zombie or something. It looks like a mix of Xavier and Phoenix as represented by George A. Romero.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, like look at this one. That's him without.
Wait, what? That's it?
Yeah, that's him without any light behind him.
Okay, now that looks like Bob from Twin Peaks with like a skull painted on his face.
Just happened there, but I lost you for a second.
Oh yeah.
But you're back now, and it looks like Bob from Twin Peaks. Is that what you said?
It's kind of what it looks like, yeah.
And and I never watched Twin Peaks. If I made a comment, I would just be talking out of my ass. I have no idea what you're talking about.
You should have been like, yes, that does look like Bob from Twin Peaks.
You know what? It looks like Bob from Twin Peaks. You're fucking
What
right.
an incredible actor he was. Let's move on.
Let's talk about some other show. There's a picture of One Punch Man here.
I love One Punch Man.
I have no idea what that has to do with Marvel's One Above All, but you know what? I watched that because you told me to, and hot damn, that's a great fucking show.
It's hilarious.
It's so good.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
it's one of the few animes I've watched that legitimately had me like laughing out loud. Like it was really funny.
Jesus Christ. The things I'm seeing here. Here's a picture, like a classical comic drawing, like Golden Age drawing of Batman kissing Superman.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, I'm going to show it to you.
Show me.
All right. Here it is. They're like sweethearts. Look at them go.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, for the family. There you go, everybody.
Action.
If you ever had any questions, they've just been answered. Any kind.
You know what I watched? That makes me think of. Have you ever seen MacGruber?
Yeah, MacGruber. He's ripping throats out and shit.
MacGruber? I forgot how funny that movie
What is
was.
it?
I watched it the other night.
Oh, yeah. Keep
So
talking,
funny.
but I definitely have to show you this now because I think I know who you're talking about.
Let's see.
with Bob from Twin Peaks. Is that him?
No.
No,
No, but it does look like him.
I assumed that's who that was.
It's not
Anyway,
Bob from Twin Peaks, but he does look like that guy.
Yeah.
That guy does look like him.
that guy looks more like him than anybody. But yeah, you were
Yeah.
saying MacGruber.
Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen MacGruber, it's just like so fucking funny.
It's so shitty, but it is really funny, like in
It's
a
funny
fucked
shitty.
up,
Like,
stupid way.
Yeah, it's such a stupid movie, but it's like perfectly stupid. Like, if you guys don't know who MacGyver is, MacGyver was like a popular.
If you guys
MacGyver-
don't know who MacGyver is, you guys need to do some catching up on life before you listen to this podcast. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing here and not watching old episodes of MacGyver.
Here's the funny thing: even people who don't necessarily couldn't tell you who MacGyver is, they still know the term "I MacGyvered it." Like MacGyver
Right.
is very deeply ingrained into.
It's in human conversation.
Yeah, that's like you could probably.
MacGyver has reached the common lexicon of individuals.
Yeah, no, that's got to be in like the dictionary. That's like
It probably had,
everybody
yeah.
uses that term. I MacGyvered it.
I MacGyvered it.
So it's like a spoof. It was an SNL spoof of MacGyver, but it's MacGruber, and he's just this hilariously horrible character, and he's really into ripping people's throats out. It's like so funny at the end of the movie when he has to get one more throat rip in. He's like, I really want to go for that turkey.
It's like the only thing that he actually can do. He's like a shitty MacGyver, like a shit.
He's a
doesn't work.
horrible, yeah,
He's like
horrible
awful.
MacGyver and everything else.
Yeah,
Val Kilmer's really funny in that too, playing the villain.
I don't remember. I saw it like when it was new.
Val
I
Kilmer
remember.
plays-
I remember his. I remember his carrot in the asshole distraction technique.
It's actually a celery stick.
Oh, that's right.
And
yeah.
he specifies you want to use the thick end of this, despite it sounding counterintuitive. You want to use the thick end of the celery stick to put in your butt. Otherwise, if you use the thin end, it'll just kind of shimmy its way out.
Yeah, and you got to hop like a rabbit with a
The
fucking
celery
celery
stick.
stick in your ass.
Anyways, you guys got to see MacGruber.
Anyway, yeah, you guys got to watch some MacGyver and some MacGruber. And not, I don't know about this new MacGyver show. I haven't watched it.
Oh, I
When
forgot
I do,
there's an
I'll
MacGyver.
tell you. I'll tell you if you should or shouldn't watch it, but don't
Yeah.
watch it until I do. Okay?
They probably didn't need to make a new MacGyver.
I don't think a new MacGyver was necessary.
MacGyver
see,
only worked in the 80s.
Did
That
you
won't
see?
work
Did you see the Baywatch movie that they came through with?
now. No, I mean I saw like trailers for it, but I never actually watched it.
Dude, it was actually really, really funny. Like it was a
Was it?
very self-aware movie. It was super dumb, super silly, but it was like, it was great.
They kind of tried to do like a 20-run Jump Street, but Baywatch, right?
Kind of, yeah. It was along those lines. It was definitely, that's a good way of putting it.
Hmm.
There's like one scene where The Rock, who plays Mitch, meets Mitch, David Hasselhoff, and he's just like, Mitch.
How do you go from David Hasselhoff to The Rock?
That's what's so fucking funny about it.
Like two opposite.
Like you feel like he's the whole time they're pretending that he's playing that character, and then he meets his idol, the man who trained him to be a lifeguard, and it's David Hasselhoff, and he's just old and bloated and falling apart.
Who's Pamela Anderson's character?
I don't know.
CJ Parker.
I think CJ is this crazy hot like mixed blackish looking girl. I don't know. I've seen her on she was on the Punisher show, the series on Netflix. But she was on it for like a second.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know her name. I don't know what she was on. All right, I might as well just look this up just so I can tell you. IMDb, motherfuckers.
Remember how popular Pamela Anderson was in the 90s?
Yeah, and then she got hepatitis C, and everyone was like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, that really put a nail in that coffin. Tommy. It was also, I think, partially maybe just Tommy Lee.
Yeah, that was
the first one.
That's a nail in a coffin for sure. Like
that was the first one of
What?
its kind. The celeb sex tape. I mean, there was
Oh
others
yeah,
that came
yeah. You're
before it,
right.
but
You're
that
right.
was the first one that got real popular. Pretty incredible.
Okay, this isn't the one who I thought was that character, but she looks pretty banging too. Her name, the girl who plays CJ, is Kelly Rohrbach.
Oh, I know who that is.
But the one who I was thinking of is, let me see who she
Is it
is.
Elizabeth Daddario?
What?
Elizabeth Daddario?
No, I think it's this Ilfinish Hadera character.
Very exotic sounding.
Yeah, she is super exotic. Yeah, it has her on The Punisher. Yep, that's her. Yeah, she was on that shitty Old Boy remake. That's no good. Don't watch that movie, guys. For real. Old Boy is one of my favorite movies ever made, the original one. It was absolutely depressing to watch the Spike Lee remake of it. It was like he was intentionally trying to fuck the film up. I've never seen anything like it.
Why did why did they choose Spike Lee for that? That
I
doesn't
don't
really
know.
seem like his can of soup.
No, I don't know. But that reminds me of another funny thing I noticed when I was looking up Stan Lee stuff today. New Zealand, a newspaper in New Zealand mistakenly reported that Spike Lee dies at the age of 95.
You know what? Hey, he's the third most famous Lee.
Yeah. He's
Bruce Lee,
probably the
Stan
third.
Lee, Spike Lee.
Yeah, there you go.
That's funny. Spike Lee died.
This Ilfinish Hadera is Stephanie Holden on Baywatch. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't remember who that was.
I didn't regularly watch Baywatch as a kid. I didn't
ended
love
up
it, but
I watched one episode of it. I might have talked about this before. I remember the first time I ever cried watching a television show. It was an episode of Baywatch when I was a little boy. I was probably like I was probably like 7 or 8, and it was an episode where like there was like the premise of the episode. I'm pretty sure there was a dwarf in the episode, or like there was somebody. It was like a dwarf or like a person without.
I don't think you're allowed to say dwarf anymore either.
Really? What do you
Yeah.
say?
You say little person, which sounds more offensive to me.
All right.
Like-
So there was I know, right? All right. So there was a little person in the episode, or it was either a little person or somebody without legs or somebody with some kind of something. And then like somebody almost drowns at the end of the episode and there's no lifeguards around to save
Mhm.
him. So they jump in the water to save him. And it was like a very heartfelt moment. I'm pretty sure I teared up a little when I was watching that.
A little bit.
Watch.
That's pretty sweet, man. I don't think I've ever cried before from anything. My entire life.
Did you see the new Halloween?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I saw it. I actually really liked it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch it. I was planning on going the other day. I just didn't. I didn't get around to it. I actually should have gone today. I don't know why I didn't. Today's $6 movies for.
Did we talk about Halloween in the last podcast?
We talked about this one in a couple podcasts, actually.
No, I know that, but did we talk? Had we talked about it since I saw it?
No, I didn't. When did you see it?
I saw it like I don't know, right when it came out, like 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we didn't talk about it. I
It
mean,
was really good.
don't share too much, you know.
No, I won't spoil it. They did a very good job of making it feel like it was in the same kind of little universe
Mhm.
while updating it. There were some things that I didn't enjoy completely. I would have changed. But for the most part, it was like a solid follow-up. Like it felt like it was within the same universe.
I can't comment. I can only say I've seen the trailers and it looks like they, attach it to the original.
Most of all, it's just like a fun horror movie. Like it's a fun. They really like up the ante on the gore and everything, and like because the original Halloween had pretty much no gore, but they really up the ante on that, and just.
I think that's just necessary with a horror movie nowadays. If you're gonna do like a slasher horror movie with no gore, people just aren't. I wouldn't. I'd be pretty disappointed if I watched a fucking slasher movie and there wasn't any fucking violence in it.
Yeah, no, they have some solid. They have some solid kill scenes in the movie.
Hmm. I mean, that's what you're watching a slasher like that. That's sort of the formula of a good slasher movie is creativity of how the kills happen. You know, that's the artistry of it.
Yeah.
We know the plot. There's a murderer killing people. If nobody gets killed, there's no plot. And if the killing isn't interesting, if it's just the same way somebody gets killed over and over again, that's not interesting.
You have a one particular all-time favorite?
Particular all-time favorite slasher?
No, not slasher movie, just like particular scene, movie death.
Oh yeah. Scariest or favorite?
Just favorite, like most, just overall favorite, most fun. Just
I have to give credit to this movie just because, like, yeah, this is definitely the scariest. It's most disturbing. Every time I see this, I can't prepare myself for it. I've seen it several times, and every time it happens, it freaks me the fuck out. There's a scene on the movie Inside, the original French one. They did a remake, an American one recently, and I watched like halfway through it, and I was just like bored, and I turned it off. Which I don't normally do, but super fucking scary movie. It was from 2007, and there's a scene where a police officer gets into the house, and she's trying to say, and he's like investigating, and like the lights go out, and you just hear like a bunch of like bustling around, and like the lights are out for a little bit, and there's this kid that he arrested in the house with him. And you're following the kid around basically. And I can't remember how it goes exactly, but he, like, the lights start flashing back on, and he sees the cop, like the lights come back on, and sees the cop like staring at the wall, and he like grabs him, and the cop turns around, and his eyes have been gouged out, and he's been like stabbed in his ears. So the cop just starts fucking strangling him and like screaming, like, and like when it happens, it's so like shocking, like the noise and everything, and just like the cop's face, and it's like the lights are flashing on and off. It's like super fucking horrifying.
So you went for like the scariest, the gruesome.
Well, I mean, like it was executed so fucking well. Like it's genuinely, like, I have to give credit to it. I think I was more impressed with that than any horror scene that I've seen anywhere.
I'll have to watch that. I've never seen it.
Oh, dude, it's absolutely like it'll change you, and not in a good way. Like,
all right, maybe I won't watch it. So my
that movie will leave scars in your mind. All right.
I'm going the complete opposite route. My favorite, if I had to pick one, it would have to be from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. Where this is a legit good one though.
Oh yeah.
Where Freddy Krueger,
I believe you.
Freddy Krueger is he comes out as a marionette, a little puppet, and then like Freddy Krueger invades the guy's dream, and Freddy Krueger cuts out the tendons in the guy's arms, and he uses them as marionette strings and like walks them off the ledge of the building.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really cool one. And then within that same movie, they had another really good one. This one's like super fucking corny. But Freddy Krueger, his head is like inside of a TV, and the lady walks up to it, and he's talking to her from the TV. And then when she gets close to the TV, these big like puppet arms come out of the side of the TV and grab her head. And then they just pull her head right into the TV, and it kills her.
Classic.
I'm pretty sure he says something to her like something like, watch this, bitch, or like something like that. Some really corny 80s line.
Have you seen the Rick and Morty episode where they have the Freddy Krueger character?
No.
It's I can't remember his fucking name. It's like Scary Stanley or something like that. It's like, and he just says bitch after everything. He was like chasing her. So come here, bitch. Once he loses him, he goes back to his like dream house where he has a wife who's like all like melted up like he is, and they have a little baby. She's like, how's your day at work, honey? He's like, oh, it was hell, bitch. So I'm not in the house. He's like, I'm sorry.
I've only seen like a couple episodes of Rick and Morty,
Dude,
but
it's
I've
so
always
good.
meant to. Yeah, I've heard it's really, really good.
I mean, it took me so long to actually watch it. Like the third season was already like about to come out when I finally actually gave it a shot. And as soon as I watched an episode, I was just like, oh fuck me. It's like it was made for me. I have to
Yeah.
watch it. I just marathon the whole show. I was immediately obsessed.
Is it as good as Assy McGee?
Oh dude, it's you're asking me if like steak is as good as ice cream, okay? Like we're talking about two different things here.
the, most of the people listening to this have no clue what Assy McGee is.
Assy McGee is one of the greatest works of fiction ever created. It's like animated Shakespeare. It
It's high art.
yeah,
It's finest.
it's really up there. Assy McGee is a hardened detective on the streets of New York with an alcohol addiction
Mm-hmm.
and a scooter and no body above his ass. And his
No.
ass also serves as his mouth.
He's a walking ass.
He's a walking ass with stockings and boots, and he walks backwards.
I still remember when you guys first showed me that, and I was like, "What the fuck? What is this?"
He has a floating cigarette all the time coming out of his mouth.
You almost can't believe you're watching it as you're watching it.
It's so amazing. It's one of the original Adult Swim shows. It was like around the time when like Frisky Dingo and Aqua Teen Hunger Force were really big.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that old school.
Yeah, it's one of the original fucking Adult Swim shows. It was shit. I was talking about another one with somebody the other day. I can't remember. One of the classics, Home Movies. Remember Home Movies?
Yeah, I remember Home Movies.
That was the first thing I saw. H. John Benjamin, and he was the coach.
I remember. I actually liked. I never really got into Aqua Teen, but I did like Home Movies quite a bit. Actually,
Home Movies was really good. That was that was a very underrated show. I loved Aqua Teen. Don't get me wrong, but Home Movies I think was one of the more underrated ones because like it didn't look as appealing. It didn't like have that like flair to it that Aqua Teen had.
No. Did you ever watch Wonder Chosen?
What?
Wonder Chosen?
Wonder Chosen? I don't think so. No.
You would love. It was like a skit. Hey, get out of there, Lily. Get Lily. Sorry, one of my dogs was on the bed. They're probably gonna go pee.
Mm-hmm.
That's
what they do.
I Wonder Chosen was like a skit show, almost like a SNL or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where they would just do a bunch of random skits. Some of them would be animated, but they always had this really like dark sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
where like they would just like right in the middle of the episode, they would show you like some kids like singing along, going la 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 la, and then as the kids are singing along, they're showing you like a pork packing facility where they're like beating pigs and then like putting them into hot dogs like to the sound of kids going la la la
Dear
la.
God.
And like it was just like a lot of really
it's like fucking Super Jail.
Yeah, kind of. It was just and they would have some really funny animated
Horrible things are going on the whole time. Like your protagonist character is the one who is torturing and brutalizing and maiming all these inmates.
Well, so they had one character, his name was Winobot. And he kind of looks like RoboCop, but he's a homeless dude who's just a drunk who's a part cyborg. And like instead of like RoboCop has a gun that comes out of his hand or whatever, or a knife or whatever. Winobot has a wine cork.
Yeah.
Driver that comes out of his hand, and like it's so
a
funny.
wine pen.
They do such a good job of like making it funny, but it also gets really really sad at some parts. I don't know. I'm actually you should watch some clips of Wonder Shows, and you would like absolutely love it. I think.
I know, like the name's familiar. I remember hearing the name Wonder Shows, and
really offbeat show.
Mm-hmm.
They would have this other thing where they would have
that's sort of more or less that's the Adult Swim.
Like, this
that's their motif.
Wonder Chosen, I think, was on like MTV too. I don't think it was.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, But this kid, they had this other one where this little kid, they would have it was called Kids Beat or something like that. And it
Kids
was,
Bop.
or no, it was
That was
called,
where children re-sang popular
no.
pop
This was called
culture
either Beat.
songs.
It was, no, this one was called Beat Kids. So like Kids Beat, but it would say Beat Kids, like Beat Kids. And then this kid, they would have this little redhead kid go around and interview people on the street, just like walking around New York. And they had him in a little
like a kid on a beat, not
yeah, on a beat. And they had him in a little like Carmen Sandiego jacket, looking like an old school reporter. And then he would just walk up to like a random dude walking out of like a banking, like a Wall Street type scenario, real people. And he would walk up to him and he would just go like, what does it feel like to exploit people? And like he would just ask him like horrible questions, and then the guy would be like, well, I don't think I do that. And like the kid would be like, sure, and look at the camera and wink. There's just like a lot of funny scenarios like that.
Did you ever see Frisky Dingo?
No, that doesn't ring a bell at all.
As one of my all-time favorite Adult Swim shows. It's really shitty animation, or not. Actually, it's not super terrible. It's like it's the same crew that did Archer.
Okay.
So instead of them being secret agents, one of the characters, like the main character, he's a super rich, like he's a billionaire orphan superhero. So he's just the stereotype.
Okay, this is kind of starting to ring a bell.
Yeah. And the villain is a big pale guy with claws for feet with a British accent named Killface.
All right. Sounds promising.
He just wasted all of his money on a thermonuclear weapon that is all rusted out and doesn't work, and he doesn't have any money to repair it, and he doesn't have any money to fund his campaign for his media campaign to tell the world how he's going to destroy it.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch this.
You can watch the entire series in an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Like
so it was one of the little like short ones.
Yeah, but it follows a linear storyline, so it actually like goes through it like as you watch it. It's so goddamn funny. Like the superhero guy, he's just obsessed with like just like having fun and like showing off and being a badass, and he like has this cyborg fucking crew called the Exticles because his name is Awesome X.
Mm-hmm. I remember this now because I remember the Awesome X thing.
Yeah,
I remember that for sure.
Awesome X and the Exticles.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to revisit that.
Yeah, all you guys listening, it's like I've watched it through like 5 times, and every time I cry my eyes out. It's so goddamn funny. It's classic.
So one thing we definitely need to touch upon. I know we texted a little bit about it back and forth, but this last weekend was, in my opinion, the craziest finish in any MMA fight ever.
God damn. Yeah. Well, I mean, has there ever been a finish that close to the end of the 5th round? I don't think there has.
There has.
There has?
Yes. When Demetrius Johnson submitted what's his face with the flying armbar with the German suplex into an armbar, which was also crazy. I would actually this is kind of in that this is kind of in that realm.
What's up over there?
You have no idea. For those of you who can't see, I am surrounded by pugs. I've got 4 pugs on me.
This man is wearing a blanket of pugs, and he has other pugs orbiting around him.
So yeah, I would put it up there, in my opinion, craziest finish of all time. The reason why, there's multiple elements to. Number one, if he had just finished him with anything that close, 5 seconds away from the bell in the 5th round, that would have been crazy enough. Let alone finishing him with a no-look, over-the-head elbow that nobody's ever done in MMA.
I believe that would be described as, like, I could be wrong about this, but I think that would be called a reverse up elbow.
Okay, so a reverse up elbow.
So like an up elbow would come up like this,
like a crescent.
But what he dipped forward and came up like that, backwards. So it was
5 seconds.
Yeah,
the 5th round.
Yeah, it was very Ong Bak. He
Yeah.
knocked him cold out. Like,
And that's okay. That's the other crazy thing
yeah.
is he not only was the knockout itself, just the move that he finished him with was nothing we'd ever seen in an actual fight. Completely insane. 5 seconds left on the clock, and he was actually down on the scorecard, so he would have lost the fight had this not happened.
It was
On
very
top of
close, but
that,
he probably would have lost the fight. It
yeah,
was very,
yeah. And then on top of that, Korean Zombie gets knocked out and full blown, like out of a movie, just pile drives his face into the
Mhm.
ground.
It was actually
plant.
like a little bit scary. Like
It was
the
scary.
way
It
he
looked like
fell,
he was
it looked like he might have died.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. That actually did cross my mind slightly when I was watching it. I was thinking, what if this is the first death ever in MMA?
Oh, it's not
or
the
in
first. It wouldn't be
UFC?
the first. Yeah, it would be
UFC.
the first death in UFC, and
Because
from yeah, and
fuck.
from impact. I don't think anybody's died from like an impact. Like
Right.
the people die from like weight cut related issues and like heart trauma, which is usually related to the weight cut. The other thing that we haven't touched on about that yet, that's so like fascinating, is like the amount of trauma that Korean Zombie was showing himself able to withstand. Like he took some massive shots in that fight, and
Yeah.
they didn't even phase him. He was just like fine.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't believe that got him closer to being knocked out necessarily. That like, you know, loosen him up for that one shot to be the one. That would be pretty spectacular timing. You know, if that were the case. But Korean Zombie that's where he got his nickname. He's like a zombie. You could just keep hitting him, boom, 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 boom.
He's got a real weird style because
Yeah.
if you look at the way he fights, he throws a lot of hooks, a lot of big power punches, and he does this weird thing that I never noticed quite that much before, but where it almost looks like he's in like he's like slow, like he'll just stop. He'll just stop and kind of reset. You know what I mean? There doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency in his style. He kind of just plops forward.
Well, for someone like that's a really good way of putting it, because he's extremely active, but he doesn't act with a lot of urgency. He acts like this is just going to go level, boom, boom, boom.
He almost kind of
the whole time.
Yeah, you know what he almost kind of reminds me of in a weird way is like similar to like the way the Diaz brothers fight, in that he throws a lot of volume, but he's throwing all power punches. He doesn't like it's no pitter. He doesn't, Diaz brothers will throw a mix of everything. He's just throwing fucking bombs.
The Diaz brothers also use a lot of subtle head movement. That's what they don't get credited for that as much as they should. Like they absorb a lot of their shots by using head movement. Like they take the shot, but they roll with it as they're going. Like they don't get completely out of the way to clear it. And they get little bruises and swellings and shit from it, but they're not taking knockout impact because they're moving with the shot as it's hitting them,
Right.
And he's just kind of like
he leaves his
there.
fucking head out. Yeah, and that's even though I had him ahead in the fight as I was watching it, I was like, fuck, the way this dude leaves his chin out there, like he could get taken out at any moment,
Right.
And fuck it, that's what happened. Fucking got
all of a sudden.
Elbow from fucking hell.
Yeah, and I mean, what more can be said about that? I mean, we can look at that and talk about that all night. Absolutely, if you're a fight fan, you have to see that. You just absolutely got to. Yeah, I'm not a big Yair Rodriguez fan, to be honest. Like, he's super good, but there's something about him that bugs me. Like the way he moves and everything is just this like sort of it's almost like a pretentiousness in the way he moves that I just look at him. I can't like him, but it's just incredibly impressive. Like
it was, and that was one of those moments. As disappointed as I was that Korean Zombie lost, I really wanted to see him get that win. It's just like that's one of those moments, like where like you're like, man, this is why you watch fucking fighting. You know what I mean, though? You'll never get that feeling watching. I don't care if you're a fan of fucking basketball or football or whatever. You will never get that feeling watching
nothing like that is going to happen in any other sport. Like the gnarliest Hail Mary shot is never going to match up to something like that.
Yeah.
Or like fucking Pettis stepping off the fucking cage and do a jump kick.
To me, that moment, what we saw on the Saturday, that was because I remember watching the Showtime kick live
Yeah.
as it happened, and that was the equivalent to that. I mean, it
Yeah.
was that
It was
incredible.
one of those moments where it was just like, whoa.
Almost more so because with the Showtime kick, it was like, yeah, he hit him with that kick, and you got to see something new that you'd never saw before. But he didn't
Mhm.
finish him after that. You know, the fight went on. With this, he hit him with a move equally impressive to the Showtime kick, and he put his fucking lights
Well,
out. And like,
well,
you know,
yeah, that's true, but also I think it's more impressive in the sense that that elbow is super hard to generate power with.
yeah, that's
Like
another thing.
there's
Like, how the fuck?
that's the Showtime kick. He's kicking off the cage. He has like the pressure
Right.
from the cage bouncing that foot out. Oh, he should have hit him fucking hard with that. The fuck that reverse elbow is just like
How
I
you can
can't even move
generate?
my arm like that. How are
I
you
know
gonna
that's
generate it
exactly what I was thinking. Like, how can you generate force from that angle? Like, and you could tell too when that elbow hit. It wasn't like one of those things where kind of like what you were talking about, where like, okay, well maybe by that time he had softened his chin up and it just was kind of like the final blow. No, if you go back and watch that replay, that elbow snaps his jaw.
Yeah.
I mean, he
No,
fucking
you see
whipped
him. He
that
just
thing.
crushes his head.
Yeah, that's
It's
what's crazy
terrifying.
about it too.
Yeah.
Something
Uh,
else.
just before that, the Cerrone Mike Perry fight. Uh, that was awesome.
That was cool to see. I
That
like
was
that
yeah.
because you know, I don't know, man. Winklejohn kind of seems like an asshole.
I don't know anything about it aside from what I've heard
Uh,
Cerrone say on the Joe Rogan.
I saw some
Like
interviews.
I didn't know that it was like that.
I saw some interviews with Winklejohn after the fact, and he was like, you know, Cerrone is just a cancer, and we get rid of the cancer. And you know what? For all you people out there that are riding on Cerrone's, you know what, that hard? Well, that's just gross. And like he just sounded
What?
like yeah, he's just lame. Like you're fucking
It's like he
super.
wrote his own narrative there. He's all, you know, if you're writing on his, you know what, it's gross.
Yeah, it was just like
Yeah.
he just sounded so stupid when he said that. But it was cool to see Cerrone. It's always cool when you have a
Mhm.
backstory like that where there's so much emotion involved, and to see
And
it
I
back.
mean, Mike Perry's a fucking animal.
Yeah,
I remember we were talking about it before. We didn't know who Mike Perry and Paul Felder were, and as soon as I watched them fight, like I had to look up some highlights and shit. Those guys are fucking monsters.
well, I
Oh,
definitely knew more of Paul Felder than I did Perry
mm.
because Paul Felder is he's got a real exciting, explosive style. You know, like
They
he's
that um that fight was super close,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Felder like broke his arm early in the
First
fight.
round, they said.
Yeah, so that's pretty tough to
Yeah.
go through that. You know.
I just as much as I like what Perry brings to the table as far as he gives funny interviews, he has exciting fights.
Mhm.
I just don't ever see him reaching that like upper echelon
No,
level.
but I kind of see Cerrone the same way because he has a history of being like up and down. You look at his
For sure.
record, what was it, like 30-11?
Yeah,
It's
well,
like
that's what's crazy with Cerrone is the fact that they said that with that fight, he now has the most finishes in UFC history. He has the most wins in UFC
Mhm.
history. I mean, like
So-
Donald Cerrone has to be like one of the best dudes to never win a title. You know?
right. Well, wasn't that that was like Joe Lozon for a while. He had like the most finishes in UFC, or at least in his weight
They,
class, I think.
I think they said that Cerrone, yeah, maybe in the weight class because I think they said Cerrone beat out Anderson Silva for most finishes with
Mhm.
that one.
Yeah, but that's all those losses peppered in there that
I know. But
they
Cerrone's got a
screw up
weird thing that
that.
he'll
Yeah.
do where like Cerrone will basically he'll go on a tear, he'll win 3 fights and look really good doing it, and then he'll lose a big fight.
Yeah, he's
Win
super inconsistent. That's it. Like
yeah.
I don't know what else to call it. He's just really, really inconsistent, and
Well,
that's what's gonna keep him from going anywhere unless he figures out what that is and stops it.
well, I think the problem with Cerrone too is I think he does crack mentally a little bit because if you look at his hit track record, the bigger the stage, like kind of like the bigger the failure, you know, like he has that loss to you know, that big fight with Nate Diaz. He lost that fight.
Mhm.
He got that title shot against RDA. He got starched within like a minute. He had that big fight. I think it was one of his first fights in UFC in Denver against Jorge Masvidal. Goes out there
Oh yeah,
losing.
and fucking
Like
yeah,
every time he gets put on that big stage, it seems like he kind of chokes a little bit.
yeah. God damn that Pettis fight. You know, that's like, you know,
Pettis, that was another one,
that
right?
was
Was
a,
that
that
that wasn't a title shot though? I don't think. I think that
no,
was building up, but he got starched with that body kick.
dude, that was so severe. It was beautiful. That was like one of my favorite strikes I've ever seen land on a person.
That's actually a fight that it might make sense to run back right now
Sure, that would
because
totally be a reasonable rematch right now.
yeah,
That
because
would make a lot of sense.
Cerrone was talking about wanting to go back down to 155, and Pettis
Mhm.
is coming off that loss to Ferguson.
Mhm.
Tough fight. Do him versus Cerrone. That'd be a good fight.
Be a great place for both of them to see where they're at. You know,
Yeah,
be a big sink or swim fight for both of those guys.
yeah.
Um, Not really sure what would happen to the loser after that. I mean, they're
Well,
both
they're
well
kind of
established enough that they're not just going to cut either of them, but
no.
also like anything short of like a fight of the night performance.
They're kind of both at that same stage in their career where you know that there's not a great chance that either one of them is going to work their way up into like title picture again. Probably
Maybe, but you know what? That
anything
fucking
can happen, but
dude, that fight with Ferguson was really good.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was great. It was great.
Ferguson
Don't get me
kept
wrong.
Ferguson
But
kept pressure on him the whole time, but he was dangerous to Ferguson the whole time.
he
There's no
was.
until he broke his hand and they called the fight.
But if you look at it like this though, look at Ferguson's style. Ferguson has a history of Ferguson beats everybody, but even the guys that aren't necessarily on that next level, he has competitive fights with. So if
Mhm.
you look at like when he fought Lando Venata on short notice, that was a war, like back and forth, fucking just badass fight. When he
Mhm.
fought Barboza, you remember when he fought Barboza? Fucking bloody showdown,
Yeah,
like violence. Like
that
Ferguson has competitive fights with almost
that's
everybody.
true.
Kevin
Seems like
Lee.
Ferguson's one of those guys who can't help but have a hard fight. It's
Yeah,
like
that's just
he could
him.
fight anybody, and it's gonna be a hard fight. So that's a good.
Right.
But still, like, I mean, I still see Pettis as a different animal.
I
I think he was kind of on a downward spiral, and I think they once he started to show some promise again, they put him back up at the top a little too quickly. I think he probably could have used another warm up, but
he it just seems like to me Pettis kind of there's a certain when he gets put into like a war, when he really gets pressured, I guess he kind of reminds me of a Cerrone in his way. Like Pettis is really good when he's the hammer, but when he's not the hammer, he can fold a little.
maybe. But he's had really good performances with people who were competitive with him too. I mean, his fight with Ben Henderson back in WEC, like that wasn't a one sided fight.
No, not at all.
And
That was a
yeah,
competitive fight. And then they fought again and Pettis like fucking mopped him.
yeah,
Um but that was a long time ago now. He's a little
for
older
sure.
now.
That's just sort of reflecting on that, like, you know. But I don't know, man. I always want to see Pettis do good. I'm a longtime Pettis fan.
So you'd be rooting for him against Cerrone?
Yeah, yeah, I like Cerrone, but I think I like Pettis more.
Yeah. Yeah, Pettis has got more Cerrone's got kind of a weird style when you watch him strike.
I also kind of don't like that Cerrone is a fake cowboy. That there's something about that bothers me. Like, he grew up in the suburbs. You could look up pictures of him when he was like a teenager with his family. Like,
That's
and then,
true.
yeah, he adopted the cowboy lifestyle, and he
It's like why
adopted.
would you want I can understand if you were born a cowboy, but who
Right.
chooses to be a cowboy?
Well, that's what's lame about it is it's not like it's a culture. It's not something that you. It's like me going like I'm going to be black now. Like it's not who I am. uh, like
I tell you what, Mike Perry is more black than fucking 90% of the black people I've met. Mike Perry is very, very That guy he's got his own way of talking. You know what I mean? Have you ever heard him in one of his interviews?
I don't think I've heard his interviews. I
Oh
thought
man, you got to hear Mike
you're
Curry's
talking about,
interviews.
so
Oh, you got to hear his interviews.
all
He's
right,
something else.
I gotta look it up. I will.
He has some of the most urban way of speaking I've ever heard, I think.
It's hysterical. He definitely doesn't look like that exactly. He looks like a pretty rugged guy, but I don't know about.
He's got tattoos on the face.
Yeah, he's got a face tattoo. That means he might have been to prison. That doesn't mean that he talks like a black guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think yeah, that's something that always bothered me about Cerrone. I like him. I don't think he's like I mean, when he talks, he's cool. He's cool in his interviews, but it was always like something that was just weird to me. Is like, you're not a cowboy. You chose to be a cowboy. Like
he chose the cowboy life.
Yeah.
Does he I wonder if he even like I think he knows how to ranch.
Yeah, he has a ranch.
Yeah.
He owns a ranch now, which, you know, when you reach a level of success where you can buy yourself something like a ranch, you could do that if that's something if that's a lifestyle you choose to adopt. But, you know, still.
What if we were just talking about a bottle of ranch? That's what he owns.
He owns
bottle of ranch.
He owns a bottle of Hidden Valley. And that's how he became a cowboy. So I'll use it for his pizza and the occasional salad, which I just like, I don't know if I've talked to you about this before. Have you ever thought about how insane it is that the standard thing that we do with leafy green vegetables, like fresh, healthy vegetables, is let's slather them in salty mayonnaise?
Well,
like, that's
so
the right thing to do.
There, in a roundabout way, there's a method behind the madness.
Is that a fact?
Yes, in a roundabout way.
Okay.
Definitely doesn't make sense to slather them in mayonnaise for sure, but there is scientific data to say that it is beneficial to slather them in fat.
Right, I agree, and I don't think that it's not.
But I don't
healthy.
think that's. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that's why anybody who's slathering their veggies in mayonnaise is.
I'm actually more specifically talking about the not the health the health retractions from the vegetables. I'm talking about vegetables are like the flavor profile of vegetables is like fresh and like moist, crisp, those sorts of things, refreshing.
Here's the real question though. Have you ever tried to eat a dry salad?
Yeah.
There's your answer.
No, but yeah, put some fucking olive oil on it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That makes
That's
sense.
what I would do.
That matches.
I do.
Avocado oil. That's what I've been doing lately. Oh.
Yeah, I do the same every time. I do olive oil and balsamic. That's it.
Olive oil, balsamic, or like.
Or even I can actually same thing. I can actually just do if I have like a good enough amount of avocado, even if I just take that and just kind of mix it into it, like, even that'll be enough. That coats it enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been using avocado oil lately. I don't know if that's as good or better than olive oil, but it tastes fucking good. So.
I think it's pretty. There's something I read on it. It's pretty similar, but I think you can actually heat avocado oil.
It has a higher smoke point or whatever, but
yeah, so it's better. You can use it for cooking, and it would be good too.
Yeah, I soaked a couple steaks in avocado oil today before I grilled them. That was just amazing.
That sounds good.
Dude, it was so good.
I had a steak for dinner. I had a ribeye for dinner.
I have some New York steaks.
Some New York strips.
New York strips.
I have some of those in my freezer.
New York strippers.
Where do you buy your steaks from?
Vaughn's or Vallarta.
Do you ever go to grocery outlet?
Yeah, I don't ever see good deals at grocery outlet for steaks. They have like pork roast there for good deals.
Every once in a while, they'll get on a hot streak where they get these like grass-fed ribeyes in.
Mm-hmm.
I think I told you about this before.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this on here actually. But,
people are like, "God damn it, they're talking about grass-fed ribeyes again."
These guys and their goddamn grass-fed ribeyes. Vallarta has really good deals on grass-fed beef though. Like if you're just looking for bulk at a good price, like they
I'll
do
have to
like
go there. I never go there. I don't know why.
they do $3.99 for top sirloin and chuck roast and ground beef, all grass
Oh,
fed.
grass fed? Really?
Mhm.
Wow, that is
Yeah,
really good.
it's a fucking killer deal. Like super cheap.
Hmm.
If you're trying to eat right, like that's a good way to go.
Check that out.
Hmm. Yeah. You seen Venom yet?
No, I'm probably gonna wait till that one hits DVD or on
You
demand
don't
or
want to see
whatever.
that in theaters?
No, honestly, dude, I saw the trailer for it and I just thought it looked awful.
I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good.
All
I think
right.
you'll like it. I think they went really I mean, I can't say off the top of my head anything that I didn't like about it. I know there were dry points in it that like I gotta say the first like maybe 45 minutes is the Eddie Brock show where it's just basically showing how his life fell apart. He took a little bit of creative license with it. Um, he has no affiliation with Spider-Man. You know how Eddie Brock always fucking hated Spider-Man? That was like
Yeah.
where the half villain side came from, was his like desperate fucking hate for Spider-Man. Spider-Man was completely uninvolved with the story. So I
Right.
felt like that kind of took away from it a little bit. It took away a little bit of the drama. Um, but I really liked the way that they developed the character and the relationship between Eddie Brock and Venom. Uh, the graphics on it were really good. They had that good kind of CGI where it like has that textured feel where it looks like something that's real, like how Infinity War was with Thanos and everything.
Hmm.
It wasn't that like Black Panther CGI where it's just like, oh, all of a sudden we're in a cartoon. All right.
Yeah, Black Panther did have really bad CGI.
Yeah.
It was a
That was
good
what I did.
movie, but I don't understand. They really shit the bed on the CGI in that one.
That was what I didn't like about it. It was all CGI and it was all super cartoony, shitty CGI. I liked everything about it other than that, but that just killed the movie for me.
I don't get how the CGI could be so not great in Black Panther, but then so good in Infinity War.
Immediately afterwards, right?
I
Yeah,
know.
like
How do they? Don't they got the same fucking studios making this shit?
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They probably just were too busy working on Infinity War, and they were like, you know,
But Black Panther was such a massive release, though. It was a huge deal.
I don't think they thought it was going to be as big as it was, though. You
Did you
know what I
see all
mean?
those? Did you see all those faked news reports of like white people getting beat up outside of Black Panther?
Oh my god!
They had all these pictures of like white people all fucked up on the ground outside of like Black Panther like theaters that
They
were
just
showing.
got like they just got like people standing over him doing the Wakanda Forever
Yeah,
fucking
Wakanda
sign.
forever.
Oh my god! That's I think we talked about this before, but I had somebody I knew who they were like, "I'm not going to go see Black Panther," and I was like, "Why?" They were like, "Because
I'm
they were."
racist.
Yeah, they basically said that it was racist, and I had to like school them on the history of the whole Black Panther character and how about Black Panther actually predates the Black Panther Social Party. That character came
It
out
does.
first,
Yeah.
and then they changed his name to Black Leopard, and they realized how fucking shitty it sounded, and
Oh,
they had to
that's not
change it
gonna
back
work.
to Panther. Yeah.
Black Panther did come out as an African superhero during the aggressive uh, time of apartheid, though. So that because it came out like what 1973 or 1968, some like random
It was the late
time like
'60s, I think.
I think it was 68.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was when we still had apartheid going on in Africa. So that was a
Well, that's
bold
what, dude.
statement.
Marvel was like way ahead of the curve
Very
on a lot of
progressive,
their. Yeah.
super. Yeah, they were like very very progressive about a lot of things. Like the whole X-Men was like a allegory for racism.
Right.
Like, yeah,
That's what I always felt like made the X-Men a little. I don't know. I always really liked the X-Men. I think that's what made the X-Men just a little more interesting to me is just the fact that they had so much kind of. You could take a lot of like current events and apply it to the X-Men, which made it kind of interesting. And then Magneto just has like the coolest. It was funny because yesterday my nephew was asking me if I had to pick like a favorite Marvel villain, who it would be, and I was like, probably have to be Magneto. Like Magneto has such a cool backstory, and like
You told me it was Doctor Doom.
Doctor Doom is my favorite. Like looking, like aesthetically, Doctor Doom is probably my favorite villain.
You told me some interesting stuff about Doctor Doom, though. I never knew a lot about him. Like, you
Yeah,
actually went into a pretty good story about what made him an interesting character.
yeah, he's got a cool story, but if I'm having to go off of like just character development, I guess I think maybe it would have to be Magneto, just
Yeah.
because he has such a cool, like his parents were, in the Holocaust, and like there's just such a cool, like rich backstory with Magneto.
Hmm. Yeah. Magneto's Magneto's fucking dope. I love Michael Fassbender as Magneto.
Yeah, that's
This
like
is great.
yeah, perfect
That
casting on that
Oh
one.
yeah. That first movie that he played Magneto in, when it shows him like in the bar scene with the
Yeah,
German guys, like that fucking shit was hard.
that makes it well and it's almost kind of a double-edged sword because it almost bums you out that you never got a solo Magneto movie.
Right. They were
You just
supposed to do that, weren't they? I thought they were
Yeah,
going
I
to.
think they
Yeah.
yeah, I think they had it on the slot, and then they
Yeah.
ended up, shuffling the deck.
Fucking
Yeah.
he like throws the knife at the one guy and then just pulls the knife back.
Yeah, that was
so
fucking
dope.
that X-Men first. That was probably my favorite of all the X-Men movies. I
It,
loved X-Men First Class.
it was definitely one of the better ones for sure.
Yeah.
Because it seems like every time they do a sort of reboot, I like how they kind of connect the timelines. They make it all part of the same thing, sort of. So you don't
Yeah.
you don't lose one generation of
Yeah.
X-Men or those characters or anything. But every time they kind of do like a reboot like that, it gets very serious, like a new style, a new generation. Like we had the First Class, they did it more seriously. Then it got like a little sillier as they did sequels to that one. The
Yeah.
first X-Men movie was pretty serious and done well, and then it got a little sillier as they did sequels to it. And then they did Logan, and Logan was very serious and intense, and they took like a serious shot at it. And I bet you if they started doing some more Marvel, like depressing R-rated Marvel movies, they'd probably like start to get sillier anyway.
Well, I want to see Marvel Studios if they end up buying Fox. I want to see them take a shot at the X-Men. I think they should just completely reboot because the franchise has been around for so
Yeah,
long now.
it's ready for a complete reboot, and
Yeah.
they need to introduce the characters that we want to see, like Gambit.
Yeah.
We want Gambit in our X-Men. I don't see why Gambit wasn't a way bigger part, a much more integral role in the X-Men movies that we've had so far. He was in for a little bit on one of the Wolverine movies.
And it was
I actually think
fucking he wasn't
I
that
thought he
bad.
was okay. I think he was
just
okay.
that movie just fucking
Oh yeah, the movie was a
Yeah,
piece of
but-
trash, but him as Gambit, the guy from John Carter, he was fine.
Yeah.
He had the right look, he had the right like voice and
Kirsch.
everything.
They cast Taylor Kirsch was his name.
Taylor
They
Kirsch.
cast fucking Channing Tatum supposed to be playing him,
I heard that.
but the movie keeps getting pushed back for like every year.
He sort of kind of could have the right voice. Like
He could. I
kinda
could
do it,
see.
yeah.
Yeah, I could see Channing Tatum as him, but I think it's too late now because he's almost like 40.
Yeah, I think he's
You
getting a
need to get
little
somebody younger in there.
You gotta have a Gambit character because somebody's got to be able to bang Rogue.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they need to do like a real Rogue, not like a little Anna Paquin. That I'm talking.
Like a rogue.
Yeah,
Like a rogue. You gotta go out rogue. That comic book body girl. That
yeah.
that white streak in her hair. You know what I'm saying? I like that last girl who played Storm in the younger generation of
I didn't see that, but I actually heard she was pretty good.
I couldn't tell you a damn thing about her acting. She's so hot, dude. I was like in love. I couldn't look away or hear a word
They
she
had Halle
said.
Berry first. They couldn't.
Nah, dude.
smack in that department.
She's the one. I mean, yeah, Halle Berry's got it going on and everything, but this little freak, I don't know where they found her, but keep that around.
Well, shit. I have to get up extremely, extremely early tomorrow.
Yeah, I got to get up at like 7:30. Probably not as early as you, but we
So I
got it.
think, yeah. But we need to we need to do this again very soon. We're
Yeah.
gonna try and get on a
Um,
semi-regular basis here.
I know we said that last time, and that was like a month ago.
No, but we
So
mean it this time.
yeah, this time we mean it. We're gonna be doing this all the time. Trust us.
And
Yeah,
plus, this is like so easy. I feel like we got the technical aspects like completely worked out now.
super easy. We could just turn this on anytime and do it. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
I spoke to Wyatt recently. He wants to get together and do another session. I told him I'm going to be in Santa Maria for Thanksgiving. He said he'll be there as well. We can get together and do a local session.
Do a friendsgiving podcast.
Friendsgiving podcast. I like it. I'll be there for a few days. So I'm going to be in Santa Maria from, I think I'm going to be there like the 22nd to the 25th, 26th. So
Sweet.
yeah, I'm going to be there for a little while. So we'll have some time to work some shit out. When are you coming to LA again? You got to come see my new place.
We were actually we were going to try and make a trip last weekend, but the fires happened and they shut the freeway down.
Sure. There's always that. Yeah. That's a funny thing. We didn't have any input on how the entire California is on fire. I don't know. I don't of all the news that we've got going on, we're going to talk about Stan Lee.
We had
how many people died yesterday? a lot more than one 95-year-old fucking
well, that's what Stan Lee died as a result of the fire. He caught pneumonia.
He caught pneumonia from the fire. If you guys don't know, California is completely engulfed in flames right now. I read, I don't know that this is actually factually accurate, but I did read that until this, the largest fire in California history was the Griffith Park fire. I can't remember what date it was. It was like this, I think it was like the 60s or something like that. But this one just beat it yesterday.
Wow.
So, fuck.
Yeah, fires suck.
Yeah, fuck fires. So guys, follow me at Bone Catrone on Instagram. Keith Catrone, Facebook.com/Bone Catrone.
Yep. You guys can follow me at, I changed my my Instagram name. It's just Matthew Paul Labata now. I got tired of trying to explain the name.
The intrinsic resistance thing.
Yeah. And then you could follow Matt Reviews Media. I need to start reviewing things again though, because I haven't reviewed anything forever.
Yeah.
And then if you guys want to follow my pugs, the Village Pugs. This is Walter sleeping right above my head.
Mm-hmm.
We have Tuxedo, who's right here in my arm. We have Lily, and then of course Molly the Chug off in the corner there. They are the Village Pugs on Instagram.
And Matt has his nice little pug family there, and I have a bottle of Windex and this beer glass.
I have nothing. I have an empty.
I have this beautiful empty room.
And I just need somebody to share it with.
I just need love. That's all. Maybe I need a pug. All right. Maybe you're being selfish with all those pugs.
I definitely have a pug too many.
Send me a pug in the mail.
I'll ship one.
Ship me a pug. Pug delivery service. All right.
Yep.
Thanks again, guys.
All
Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Later.
How do I stop this damn thing? Oh.
And exit.